Greg Allen, back here again in the Irvington Theater. You know, when I started managing this theater back in 2014, I reached out to different artists that I knew and asked them to bring their shows here. One of those was Bill Bowers, and he came right here on the stage and gave us his one-man show. Now, Bill has been on Broadway, he's traveled the world, he has several shows that he's written. He's a playwright, he's an artist, and he is a mime. That's right, I said mime. So I asked him to come here and be part of our solo series today. So he's going to tell you a little about being a mime, about his history as an artist, and then show you a couple of clips of some of his shows. So I'm so glad that he could be here. Take it away, Bill.
Hi, I'm a mime. Hi everybody, my name is Bill Bowers, and I am a mime. I've been a mime my whole life. I was a mime before I even knew there was the word mime. No, I'm not a scary mime with rainbow suspenders and a and a beret out on the street, but I really am a mime, and I usually keep this pretty quiet. But today, I wanted to have a chance to talk to you about mime and tell you some things about it. So I want to start with my first question is, when you hear the word mime, think to yourselves, what comes to your mind when you hear the word mime? Generally, people tell me they think of silence, facial expressions, France, I hear that a lot. Black and white, makeup. Sometimes I hear about this person named Marceau. We're going to talk a little bit more about him in a bit. Mime is a type of acting that involves taking away words, and instead of words, you use your body to create character and also to put a mirror up to the world. In fact, the word mime, M-I-M-E, comes from an ancient Greco-Roman word, mimos, M-I-M-O-S, and mimos means mirror. So the art of mime is to show the world in an imaginary way. And in pantomime, that is silent. Silent storytelling, using your body to create imaginary objects and settings and environments. So that's what I do for a job. Usually when people find out I'm a mime, it begs the question, why? What got you interested? How could this have happened to you? Well, I'll start with that. I am a mime because I am from Montana. Not that Montana is the hotbed of mime culture, but Montana is big and quiet. There's a huge amount of sky, a huge amount of land. I always called it the big quiet. Well, that's where I'm from. In fact, my mom's family homesteaded out in Montana, out in right after the Civil War. So I'm a fourth generation Montanan, and we are big, quiet people. I'm also from a big, quiet family. I'm the youngest kid in a big family, and I am shy. I didn't talk much as a kid, and I'm still a very shy person. So I'm from this big place, this big, quiet place called Montana. I'm from this big, quiet family, and I'm also a gay man, and oddly enough, I was a gay boy growing up in a little town in Montana back in the 60s, long before the Oprah show or Glee or any of that. So very early on, I became familiar with not talking. So now that I'm a grown-up and can look back at my life, I realize that there were kind of what I think of as like circles of silence. The silence of nature, the silence of the family that I grew up in, and the silence of my experience as a gay kid. So I didn't know at all that I would ever be a performer, but when I was in high school, I learned that there was this art form about not talking. And I thought, I know exactly what that is. So I just began to investigate it. It was back before there was the internet. So I went to the library and I found some books about what it meant to be a silent performer. And that led me to, led me to my idol, who is one of the great mimes that's ever lived, a man named Charlie Chaplin. And I'm imagining a lot of you right now are going, oh yeah, you have an image of Charlie Chaplin. He's absolutely my idol. And when I was a kid in this small town in Montana, when I was about 7, my mom took me to see my first Charlie Chaplin movie. It was The Gold Rush, which is still one of my favorite movies of all time. It's absolutely hilarious. I highly recommend it. And after I saw that movie, I was reading a bit about Charlie Chaplin, and I discovered that Charlie Chaplin and I have the same birthday. Well, when you're 7 years old, that is big information. And it's still, I think, one of the reasons that directed me toward being a mime. And so I began to get interested in being a mime, and I loved Charlie Chaplin. And so I want to share a piece with you now that is a silent pantomime. That is, I think it's inspired by the crossroads of Montana and Charlie Chaplin. And this is a story called The Silver Dollar Saloon. Thank you. Thank you very much. So what I love about being a mime, one of the things I love about it is it's completely a collaborative art. So for example, the piece you just saw, the Silver Dollar Saloon, there's nothing on that stage but me and a hat and some music. But the audience, if you're willing, the audience begins to paint in the details. I always feel like as a mime, I'm bringing the frame and the audience paints the picture. So in Silver Dollar Saloon, for example, you knew that it was a saloon maybe because of the doors that I came through. You knew what things I tried at the Silver Dollar Saloon for the first time. Maybe a drink, chewing tobacco. You learned who I met at the Silver Dollar Saloon and the events that happened. But all of those things happened because you are here. And that's my absolute favorite thing about being a mime, is it's really a contract between the performer and the audience. And together, we create this thing that is known as mime. It takes place in our combined imaginations. So Charlie Chaplin was a huge inspiration to me, but he was also a huge inspiration to probably the greatest mime that ever lived. And I'm wondering if anybody knows who that is. He was a French performer who died just about 14 years ago. And his name was Marceau. I mentioned him earlier. Marceau is the reason we are even having this conversation now. He is the person who almost single-handedly brought the art of pantomime all over the world as a live performer, but he also had great timing because he became quite well known right about the same time as this new invention happened called television. And he was suddenly appearing on live television broadcasts around the world. And this little known art of pantomime started being beamed into people's living rooms. And Marceau, I guess I'm talking about him a lot because he was my teacher. Not only was he a huge, huge inspiration to me, but I had this great good fortune to study with him in the last years of his life. And it was completely life-changing. So he is the reason we are talking. He's the reason we know about whiteface in many ways. He's the reason we think of black and white stripes. That's what Marceau did, and everybody wanted to be like him. Speaking of whiteface, I wonder, why do you think mimes wear white on their face? Any ideas? Yeah, the color white, I think, is a big part of it. White shows up. White reflects light. So if you're one person on a stage with white on your face, chances are a person, even in way out in the cheap seats, could see you. And then if you have your expression painted on your face, outlining your eyes, outlining your mouth, suddenly those details become clearer. So the contrast of black and white and a mask, basically, is why whiteface has been used through the years, for hundreds and hundreds of years, actually. But I have a quick story about one of the reasons, or one of the roots of whiteface. I don't know if this story is true, but I really like it. I'm going to jump back in time in theater history to a period in the Italian theater that's known as the Commedia dell'arte, which, if you translate that, would be the art of comedy. The Commedia dell'arte were traveling players who were essentially improv actors. I liken them very much to Saturday Night Live. These players would travel around in wagons and go from town to town to town. They played stock characters like the young lovers and the wily servant and the angry father. And one of the lesser known characters of the Commedia was a little character, a little servant named Pedrolino, or Pedro. And Pedro didn't get a lot of stage time. He was a lesser known character, but his basic character trait is that he was dumb. He was a klutz. He tripped over things. He wasn't very smart. he was actually so dumb that he was almost a mute. And he was a slave, essentially a servant, and he got well known in one particular story in the Commedia dell'arte, a story called The Baker's Son. And in this story, Pedrolino plays the baker's son. And it's basically an improvisation between Pedrolino and the baker. And Pedrolino is very little help because he's not very bright. So he's dropping things and he's absolutely no help in the bakery. And in the penultimate moment of the story, the baker takes a big plate full of flour and goes up to Pedrolino and goes like this. He blows flour all over this guy's face. Flour on your face. Yeah. And that got a laugh. And in the Commedia, you were paid more money the more people laughed in the audience. So Pedro, or the actor playing Pedro, started entering with flour on his face. And time would move forward, and the flour became this thing called whiteface. This is actually a photograph of someone playing Pedrolino, and you can see he's wearing kind of a servant's smock, and he has white on his face. Just on one more note, here's a picture of me playing a character named Pierrot. Pierrot was the French version of Pedrolino. And Pierrot became a very, very popular character in the French theater. This is around the early 1800s, 1820, 1830. And Pierrot was very much like Pedrolino in that he was this voiceless servant. And at the time, that character really resonated with Parisians because if you think about the French Revolution, most of Paris was starving. And this little clown, this little character, Pierrot, represented the masses. And so kind of unwittingly, the character of Pierrot came to be the representative of the true people, of the real people of Paris. And if you go to Paris now, if you travel around and see Paris, you'll see the image of Pierrot. You'll see this guy on everything. He's a symbol of a true Parisian. So that's where whiteface comes from. Pierrot, the silent clown, became so popular in Parisian culture that people wanted to study how to play Pierrot. And so schools began to rise up in Paris to teach this art form of physical, stylized acting. And so when people think of the word mime, a lot of times they think, oh yeah, Paris. That's the reason, because the art form in modern pantomime, the art form is most well known coming from Paris because that was the place where you could go to study it and to see it performed. There aren't a lot of mimes in America. I'm one of the few, but it's been fantastic for me because I've gotten this great opportunity to travel all over the world. I've been to about 39 countries at this point and all 50 states, and mime is the reason I've gone to all these places. So I think this is a perfect time to teach you some mime. Are you ready? You don't have to stand up. You can stay right in your seats. The first thing we're gonna do is put your hands out in front of you like this, and you're gonna just shake out your hands. Yeah, shake them out. Come on. Faster. 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 And now everybody stop. What do your hands feel like? Yeah, that tingling. Yeah, just try to hold on to that sensation. And now you're gonna put your hands on your lap. And I want you to imagine that right now, just as you're sitting here, wherever you are, imagine that a wall just drops down right in front of you. And just keeping your hands on your lap, all I want you to do is see it. But you're going to see it with more than your eyes. You're going to see it with all the energy you have. Yeah. So you really take in this wall. And now you're going to take your favorite hand and you're going to reach out and touch the wall. But when you touch it, it's electric. I mean, it's not death electricity, it's fun electricity. But imagine that this energy just stops you right there. Maybe try your other hand. You put it up on the wall, you touch it, and it stops you. Yeah. This movement in pantomime has a name. This movement right there, you know what it's called? Yeah. Or in French, it would be... That's my only mime joke. Actually, in French, they call it toc, and in English, we call it click. So this is called the click, right there. It's a movement that looks like the sound. Good, try that a couple times. Good. So you're creating the illusion that there's something in front of you that's stronger than you. It's a wall, and it stops you. So good. Your hands are on your laps. So you see the wall? Good. You're going to reach out with your favorite hand, put your hand on the wall. Put your other favorite hand on the wall. Good. I'm going to make a move, and you mimic me. Ready? Let's do that again. You're going to bring your body forward. Bring your body back. Good. So now you're going to use the wall. Yeah, I'm going to use the wall to move my body. I call these air push-ups. Yeah? Good, good. Now, what I want you to do, I'll make a move and you mimic me. Ah, did you hear that word? Mimic. The root word of mimic, mime. Okay? So, I'll do a move, you mimic me. Good, we're gonna reverse it. Ready? And you might notice I'm trying to keep my eyes on what I'm doing. Yeah, I'm gonna watch what I'm doing. Very good. So, if you haven't figured out yet, we're creating the illusion of a wall or a plane. This is one of the classic pantomime moves. You can now use this. It's good party material. Entertain your friends. So now I'm gonna teach you one more thing. We are going to, I'll just make a move and you mimic me. Ready? Good, yeah, good. Now in this movement, you might notice I'm trying to keep my eye on the space between my hands. I'm trying to keep the space between my hands the same. You notice that? Yeah. This has a name. It's called fixed space. Yeah? I'm trying to take the space between two things, like my fingers, and keep them exactly the same. No matter where I take them, the space stays the same. Good. Good. So keep practicing that, and I'll check back with you in a few months, and we'll have our next lesson. So I am now going to do one more piece for you, or show you a recording of another piece for me. And this story is another pantomime, a silent story, and it comes from a play that I wrote called Under a Montana Moon. And all of the stories in this play are silent stories. All of the stories could happen under a moon. And the piece I'm going to do for you now is the title piece of the story. That's very much inspired by my dad. My dad was a farmer and spent a lot of time working out in the field, oftentimes till the sun went down and the moon came up. So I always had this image of my dad working out in the field as the day was turning into night and the moon starts to burn through into the evening sky. And I just had this little story about a man and a moon. So this is called Under a Montana Moon.